Welcome to Fishing Podcast 2. My name's Lyndon and I'm going to start straight up with a mistake I've seen in the last couple of weeks. I watched an educational video where 50% of people dropped off after 30 seconds, which was crazy, and 70% dropped off after 20 minutes. So that is a huge mistake for all people, say 15 to 35 years of age now, who might not have fished before digital was around, social media was around, so you don't know what that was like. A massive learning mistake, and how you can get an edge on all your friends, family, or competitors if you're competing is to actually listen for long periods of time to good information. I'll round that up at the end with a 15-minute summary. In this podcast, I've interviewed Harro Harrison, a person with unbelievable amounts of fishing knowledge in Australia. And this is a very important podcast because we're just laying the foundation down for all future podcasts. So you might not understand future works if you don't listen to this one. And it's free, so it only costs you a little bit of your time. We're going to cover the industry, talk about tournaments, contemplative, relaxation-based angling for social anglers, but then organized angling for competitive anglers, say, and fishing guides, or people that want to get better. I do ask Harro a lot of questions here, so I might talk about 20% of the time and add my summary in at the end. But it is important to know and respect the people who have laid down foundations that we stand on today. And you can do that by listening to history, respecting it, and respecting people that have made the world a pretty good place for a lot of people. Yes, I know people are going through hard times at the moment. However, we are fairly lucky in Australia with food, shelter, water for many people, even though we have a housing crisis on at the moment and a lot of other problems. We're not in the third world, okay? We don't have a war zone in the country at the moment. Maybe culturally we do, but we're very, very lucky with wide open spaces to get out, relax, and go fishing. And the main aim here is to keep fishing a mentally and physically healthy, safe place. And the more clarity you have when you're out fishing, the less fog you have, the better experience we hope you have. And as a tour guide myself, we're always talking about a visitor experience, but I see a lot of people lost in fishing. So if you always think you're looking online maybe, or people are talking to you, and most of them I would class as being lost. So listening to maybe people with different points of view, like Harro and I, or other people in the industry that talk a little bit differently to you and think a little bit differently, that might cut through a lot of the fog for you. The other choice is do the same thing you've been doing, listen to the same people, and do that for your entire life. All right. But enjoy the podcast. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. I have a summary at the end. I wish you all the best. I hope you're having a good fishing week and look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Harro Harrison to the podcast. How are you, Harro?
Good things, mate.
Beautiful time of the year in May, so heading into winter soon.
Winter, yeah, it's true. We all hope summer holds on a little bit longer, Indian summer, as they say, but who knows?
Agreed. And in the north of Australia, that's the Aboriginal season of Yek. It's a beautiful season there in the Northern Territory where the roads open up, cattle stations start mustering, everyone goes out fishing and camping. It's at the tail end of the wet season and the temperatures drop, so mango madness season is over, mate.
4 seasons, but who knows when one officially starts and one finishes. The calendar years, the people who run our lives sort of dictate start of spring, start of summer. But yeah, definitely change of season is the easiest way to regard it.
And they can be weeks out. Some flowers bloom a lot earlier in some seasons, and then other times it's a bit later. And today's topic, we're going to go over the recycling of information that was learnt and then forgotten again. Quite an interesting topic.
Very, very much so. With every, like fishing is a cyclic, and with every season, there's a new generation of anglers come along. And at the moment, I can't think of one form of fishing, bait, lure, or fly, that hasn't been already done. And what a lot of the more vocal, more active elements out there, very keen to make a name for themselves, is to recomplicate what has already been simplified. I can see it with a lot of the lake stuff now. They're still talking about the full moon, for Christ's sake. And we simplified all that. I had a deep water bite and a fringe bite, and the fact that fish become conditioned, lock them up in a bloody artificial environment and bombard them 24/7, and they do learn. And that's been one of the reasons why people find it difficult. They can't sort of produce the same results they did a few years ago. But having said that, there's with constant restocking, there's a new generation of dumb fish coming through, and of course, people are trying to reinvent the wheel, and there's no wheels to reinvent. Stealth, be quiet, good presentations, and of course, now they find the fish. No fish can evade the modern sonars, so it's still a lot of guesswork and speculation and other things, that come into it. But really, it's all been done.
We're talking about Lake Barramundi here in Australia, which can grow supposedly to 1.8 metres and 50 kilos by the CSIRO chart. And they're stocked in huge impoundments or lakes. And at the start, they're very, very easy to catch. But by the end, if they haven't gone over the dam wall with a flood, they get very hard to catch. And Harro developed systems while it was very, very hard on those lakes, especially Lake Awonga, to catch those fish. And that deep mooching you did, Harro, I think was a brilliant technique.
Well, yeah, they sometimes they come into the shallows, and sometimes a noisy boat or there's some other factor there, but they generally associate boat noise, and particularly high-powered boats, sonar pings, and that with fishermen, and the smarter fish sort of switch off. Some feed; they have different feeding windows. When they feed, they go and metabolize somewhere, and 4 to 6 hours hence go feed again. And then this is why the travel routes are so important. Uh, they don't sort of just wander in to fringe areas. There's shallows, hollows, creeks, and there's a bit of low ground there, but they follow, and they're probably one of the best techniques is to set up there. And when you know there's a bit of fish movement, keep your casts concentrated on where fish are coming or leaving.
And as a comparison to back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, with 12-foot tinnies heading down the Daly River with all the great guys up north you fished with, what's the difference between sort of then and now that you've seen and things that are being rehashed?
That's a bit of a difficult one because tidal fishing is tides. There are half a dozen good tides per month. Generally, the neaps. They're the times to be fishing and get a neap sort of falling over a weekend. The sickie rate in Darwin spikes. And that doesn't change. I mean, there are tides to go fishing on, and a change of water. The last of the run out, first of the run in. That's your prime area. You need to be on the water fishing hard during that period. In lakes, of course, there's all this hocus pocus and snake oil. Yeah, the moon, self belief, trusting God, and God knows what. There's all sorts of things, offered up, and a lot of the stuff on the internet now is preoccupied with how big the fish happen to be. There's no one seems to want to just fish for the sheer enjoyment, being out in the peace and quiet, watching the world go by. It's all predicated on how many, how big, which is a shame. Those people, I think, would be, well, at my age anyway, you learn the art of relaxing and just fishing for the sake of fishing. But unfortunately, it's turned into a competition now. The people pushing that are a minority. The only people interested in fishing comps, that tournament stuff, are the participants. I don't think the rest of the fishing world gives a rat than that. But the sheer pleasure, the joy of fishing, the peace and quiet, the tranquility, the environment, and the just being there and watching the world go by, and if you get a fish, well and good, it's a bonus, but it's not predicated on how many or how big.
And just as a bit of context there, we're not having to go at tournaments. They're great for their own realm, and they have a certain structure and rules base there that sit under certain umbrellas. We're talking about people having a really hard time at work, and a lot of people have a hard time at work in Australia. They have a cost of living crisis, and toxic boxes don't help your mental and physical health. And I've worked in those programs, and we're just talking about the bench press from the gym being taken out onto the water when what people really are seeking is relaxation. So just be very careful what you want out of fishing.
Well, exactly. A phrase I coined a long time ago is contemplative, not competitive. And boy, does that hold true today. And the people that are pushing all this are got an industry background. They're backed by the industry, but they're a minority compared with the people who just want to go fishing. If they get a modest feed, well and good. If they can release a fish for there's a feel good to that, but they are definitely a minority, and I think they've been crowded out of the forums. They don't write magazine articles. They don't. They're not on the net 24/7. The ambitious people trying to get a name for themselves, seeing fishing as a competition, as a pathway to fame, they're drowning out the very wise, experienced people aren't on the public uh, social media forums these days because you've got to wade through so much idiocy and also illiteracy. The spelling. I'm not a schoolmaster, but I left school at 14, couldn't spell cat, but I've taught myself to spell, and I think it's critical to learn those skills as much as it is to be able to tie a hook on.
And more context there for the listener, there are books and psychologists now and researchers basically confirming the destructive attributes of the digital age and the internet, firming the timelines now with social media release. And in fishing, we've seen a 20-year cycle now where people that are fishing and showing all the good spots around towns are now being targeted and told not to come back to this town. So it's going full circle.
Very much so, and that's the competitive vibe that's gone through it. It's a competition for locations, and oh, that's my spot. You shouldn't say anything. Blah blah. The people get revealing fishing spots. They regard them as theirs, but the truth is, some other bloke knows about it too. And the proponents of that view aren't the first to fish there, nor the last.
And I just want to say something to anglers wanting to get better as well. There are several ways you can do it, and fishing in a relaxed state is actually one of those ways. Another way to do it is as a personal challenge, which I've basically done all my life as a sport. That way, no one else can interfere with it. And yes, you might have heard that before. And the third way is, yep, testing yourself in competition as well, or being a guide to teach the subject. So there's many different ways to do it. And even writing, Harrow, you'd probably back that up. Writing helps you understand your craft as well.
Definitely, yeah. Well, you've got to be able to, hold people's interest. Has to, the secret to writing is write in small sentences, not big long rambling ones, and omit first person pronouns, me, myself, and I. Cull them completely. The more times I read I in the thing, I think, well, the more I's, the bigger the.
Who was it back in the day? Was it Calcutt? Well, McChrystal with the red pen through all those.
That was my first attempt at writing, yes. And he said, "This reads like a police report." And he was bloody well right, too. I typed it out on a cop shop heavy duty typewriters. The search and destroy method. I was hitting the O key so hard I was punching a hole in the paper like a wad cutter round at his pistol range.
Love it. References there. Harrow with policemen back in the day. You were taught to box, weren't you? Straight up.
Yeah, we had to, well, were thrown out in the street and we had to fight, but people had a respect for the cops there then. and you could sort of, if you were fair, it was fair enough, and you never had any trouble. But anyone who bashed a cop up is gonna get a bloody, hiding at some stage or other, and, not like today experience.
Sorry for the police today and the way they're treated and the lip you have to cop from people. I'd, yeah, change that law immediately. And so back fishing with, say, a cowcut or a McCrystal, how is that different to what you see today on the internet?
They were willing to share. That was the main thing. They, if they had some little secret or key to something, they would tell you about it, not just put it on display. These days, if someone's got you only got to look at the bloody internet. Like they put a famous identity up there, and uh, I'd done it 52 times in 24 hours, some outlandish statement like that. But then you've got to read through the bloody thing to find out what do they do, who with, what club, and it's just bloody rubbish. And of course, it's the thoughts of the day, and I'm just over all that, and just put it out of my mind, go fishing, I mean, and as far as numbers go, I'm not into that either. The only time I reconcile numbers, with, I guess was the police work anyway. You have to be precise, what exact speed, what distance, blah, blah, blah. Now, you bring that to a fishing environment, and I just find it ruins the experience. But lots of young people now are in banks and accounting and things like that. So numbers, numerology is part of their whole life, but they don't take a break from it when they're fishing. It's bloody on again. Get that measuring mat out. Bloody, is that centimeters or meters or feet or what? And it's almost like a bloody golf card. You got to keep score if there's a hot bite on, and I just find it just ruins the whole experience. The peace and quiet, tranquility, and lots of times they've got their head buried in a sounder, so they don't learn how to read water nor to note the environment, the interaction of other uh, life forms on the water because they're all related.
Couple of points I want to go over there. One's the environment and using your senses. When I was taking people out fishing, that's one thing I really did notice from the office space group. And no offense to anyone, that happens, but it was just basically not synchronized with the natural world, not enough exposure to it. And you could see that straight away. And that's why a lot of times I took people fishing without a sounder. It was absolutely brilliant. And back on the point of measuring, you want to be very careful. You're not measuring your self-esteem. We do that a lot in, say, sport measuring. Yes, in competition, absolutely. If you want to measure that and get better, that's another system. So competitive anglers there, fishing guides, I might be talking to you right now, or people with a personal challenge. However, the way to make your session toxic and maybe feeling a little bit like a failure is to measure too much. And the Western world at times can be hyper competitive with that one. So you just want to be careful with that if you actually seek wellness and relaxation, but you're doing the opposite when you're fishing.
Well, definitely, fishing is an escape. Why do you fish? To be famous, to be recognized, to make money. It's a big career. Go to the States and get a name for yourself, and but fishing is far too full of variables. I think there's no Roger Federer's or Tiger Woods identities in there. Yeah, everyone has you go luck in, luck out, and everyone has an hour of bathing in the sunshine of glory and so being on everyone's lips or being in tackle company ads here and there, well, if that's your thing, well and good. But I think the majority of people just look at it; that doesn't impress them, and there's a silent majority out there that just want to go fishing, relax, take it all in, and be the better mentally for it.
Brilliant. And we don't know everything. We just want to say that right now. And that's the point we're trying to get across here. It is a very interesting sport where you can have an 8-year-old with a hand line with a bit of tin foil on a 12-0 hook, catch a barramundi next to you, 50 people, but they can't walk into an Academy of Sport gym where I've trained and bench press 270 kilos, throw a shot put 22 meters or a discus 70 or run 100 meters in under 10 seconds. So it is actually a very rare sport, fishing, with all those variables that people that aren't at your level can actually get a couple of wins up on you if you are trying to, be a competitive angler. So you just want to make sure you have that in the back of your mind for the context part of it, because they might have just fluked it on the day. But what I'm saying is, in high performance sport, you can't just walk off the couch and win an Olympic medal without training.
Oh, absolutely not. Nor is it a matter of, wanting to fish, saying prayers before you cast a line, or secret bait, secret lure. And there's so much, it's actually false advertising, hanging a lure in a fish's mouth, not the way it was struck. And, pushing the point of view that if you use this lure, you'll be a better angler. And who's to say that same fish would not have taken any number of similar lures? Who's to say that? No one. And this is a lie that's constantly perpetuated. Most of the uh, people doing that are in the pay of a tackle company, so they've got to kiss the people giving them the free lures, and at every opportunity take advantage of it. And also, there's so many of them, referring to themselves in the first person. I could do something like Harro's fishing diary, do a day-to-day thing of every time I went fishing. Caught this 37, one went 17.5 centimeters. That was a pygmy perch, uh, that type of thing. And it defeats its whole purpose, I believe. But then again, I'm an old fogey and been there, done that, I think. And but that's what it's all come to. I think I so much enjoy. I'm quite happy soaking a lump of cheese for a Murray cod. I've caught them on fly cod. I've caught all four variants of Murray cod on a fly rod, but still enjoy watching a rod tip yank down to the corks when a cod takes a lump of cheese.
And the context there is, yes, at times fish will be focused on a specific bait, absolutely, and change to that and catch fish. However, the point is there are other principles in fishing that do outrank that. And yes, would it have hit any other bait that you put in front of it? I agree there. And the hyper focus on just one product alone can be to the detriment of the anglers actually getting better. Have you found that?
Very much so. But, the tackle industry and all its wisdom do foster these people. I've been there. I've been paid by tackle companies here and over in America. That's a little feather in the cap. Not many people have been actually on the advisory staffs of American tackle companies. I have, but kept it a bit quiet. And but you still have to. Here's the thing about sponsorships too. The first year, you sign the dotted line, your package is there, so you give it your best shot. Second year, you better have a little bit of depth about you, because you can't be repeating yourself. And this is where most people run out of information, and stock ideas, blah blah blah. The third year, if you don't improve on that, your credibility, you're starting to repeat yourself. People aren't listening to you as much, and the advertising managers at tackle companies, they're aware of this. And at that stage of the game, you better jump before you're shunted. Bit like politics, but that's the reality of it. And we haven't got the population basis to support fishing full time. There's a few people are able to do it. Their faces are everywhere, but and the other thing these days with exposure and that, particularly television, is that people buy the airtime. I mean, you chefs doing programs on how to boil water. Also, fishing, seems to be going through that. You can buy a block of airtime and then just shut full of one big advertorial. Tackle this, tackle that, overexposure on certain products, particularly sponsors, and it loses its impact. Like Malcolm Douglas and Ron Calcutt, they observed very strictly the delineation between bona fide content and blatant in-your-face advertising. Nowadays, it's all blurred, and the programs and the hosts, I believe, suffer a credibility gap because of that.
Cutting through that as well, that's why I recommend the frequency of fishing, actually getting out fishing and managing how many times you do fish on top of, if you just want to be sponsored, that's okay if you're heading down that pathway. But if you're going to head down that pathway as well, you have career windows genetically when you're going to be at your absolute peak, and then when you might have family, so responsibilities later on, paying off houses out here, very, very expensive now in Australia. Average price, $1 million, many areas, but you have a career window which dictates frequency of fishing, how much fishing you can do, which dictates how good you will be to have sponsors and maybe get overseas. So that's when I advise people on 8 and say 20-year careers. I'm always sitting down going, okay, do you realize your career windows, your genetic windows, your family windows, and even just blind, dumb luck, pure opportunity, knowing someone in the scene. So there's a lot to think about when you're planning a fishing career, is my point, Harro.
That's absolutely brilliant, mate, because for the first time it's been remunerated as you have with your background as a professional sports coach and fishing one of the hot spots in Australia. How many times would you win there? Hundreds now, I suppose, in the last 5 or 6 years. So you nailed it as to what it takes and the amount of dedication and all the other things that go with it. I think it's a great thing for Australian fishing, but anyone who wants to sort of get there, get to the top, be the Tiger Woods of fishing, blah blah blah, should be furiously taking down their notes about your 4 stages and what needs to be done. So good on you, mate. I'm a bit old, bit set in my ways to sort of get that competitive. Not that I ever was, but for the first time, there it is. This is the goals, the parameters, and what it requires of you, especially dedication. And the thing is, too, lots of fishing is not necessarily based on talent and ability. It's marketability and an image. The face of fishing, say, some people have a media nous and can paint themselves up as something a bit out of the box. Well and good, but if they don't measure up to what your yardsticks are, they're not going to make it. But well done, mate. Well done.
And thank you, Harro, for your advice over 20 years as well, I must say. I did it because I hated seeing anglers really confused. And so if you just want to be a social angler and have a good time and relax, so I've actually painted that path in the 4 phases of fishing. So you know where you want to go, you know where you are. And then just by using something as simple as how often you go fishing to increase your knowledge of the natural world, you're in control of your own career. That's why I did it like that. And I gave that stuff out for free too, by the way, here. So I'm not selling anything, but I will do work in the future and selling some stuff, that's fine. But I gave it out for free because I saw all that confusion and it was killing the joy of the fishing scene and might even put people off angling.
Well, it's cheaper than a bottle of snake oil, which some people are bloody expecting you to buy.
Yes, I hear. Well, we might pull this one up now, Harrow. And any other summaries at all for the podcast? We were just covering.
Oh, no, no, no. Look, I'm at peace with the world. Life's treated me pretty well. I'm into my 80s now, so I'm not sort of out on the rocks, high speed spinning with seascapes or anything so energetic. It's just relaxing, make an occasional cast. That's what it is. But in latter years, I'm really discovering the joy of fishing and time to reflect, weigh it all up, and just enjoy, a little watch for a nibble of a tremor of a rod tip and, "Oh, yeah, he's got it, boom." And then you learn. I mean, nowadays I'm a great advocate of circle hooks. So you don't strike, let the hook do its job. The fish hooks itself, rotates like a cam. The point catches and boom, hooked around the jaw hinge, and it ain't getting away. Best way to do it then, if you're going to release it, just don't pull the fish out of the water. Just cut the bloody line, and the hook will find its own way out.
I just got a couple of points to run over there. So in Australia, we have something called the tall poppy syndrome. I call it a negative pyramid syndrome or achievement anchor. And what happens is that someone that does well is criticized, and it's now linked to atrocious mental health for our young people, but also, people have a go at you, say, at 80, Harrow, and well done getting to 80, or myself, I'm approaching 50, and I work in mental health, and I've had to actually stick up for people in the workplace and at schools to stop some pretty bad stuff. And that's one part of our culture I don't like, because in other countries they celebrate people have done well a lot more. And I just like to say, if anyone is criticizing, no one is going to have your career. No one. It's just not possible to do again. You're in what, aircraft that were a bit sketchy, out, no GPS, in the middle of the jungle, traveling around the world.
Yeah, I remember one time in Costa Rica, I got out and I heard this scraping noise, and what the hell's that? And I looked down, and there's a snake called a fertile ants. That's the one bloody one you don't want to be bitten by. Your legs go where the bite side. It's like necrophilia. It just sort of frostbite. It just ulcerates and vanishes. The limb. Just be back to keep amputating. And that's what it was. It's like a pit viper. I'd rather be bitten by a inland taipan because I know what to do than one of those.
Yes, and we'll cover more of your massive career later on in many different podcasts, but that was really good today. That if I look back at those caravan parks where we had like 400 people in, especially on the full moon at Lake Awonga in Gladstone, Queensland there, they heard something like this, you could have made more sense of fishing immediately, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We had to sort of learn as we went, but we've distilled it down to where it is today. But again, people are on the make, wanting to make a name for themselves. Instead of building on, and I learned a lot of the stuff from fishing barrow with Vic McChrystal, Laurie Woodbridge, and especially Jack Erskine. Yep. Three of the best. Spent time in boats with them and learned the basics, and pretty well built on that, and always acknowledged it too. These days, these main spokespersons refuse to acknowledge the source of a lot of their knowledge, which is, if they want to do that, that's fair enough, but it is selfish. Knowledge is something to share rather than put on display, as I keep saying.
We'll talk more about those guys definitely in the future. Buffalo Ross one as well, Malcolm Douglas and co.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely, Buffalo, definitely.
He's a character, Lefty Cray, so we've got a lot to go over. But I like that, Harrow. It came at it from a sports coach point of view, free fundamentals, controlling your own destiny in fishing at all the different levels. Talked a little bit about the mistakes we've all made. None of us are experts. We put fishing into context. We're walking into an academy of sport off the couch. You're not going to get to
Yeah.
the Olympics, but someone can walk off a couch, throw a line in right next to you, and catch a better fish than you. So it's a very hard sport to sort of measure and manage all the time. That's why we do recommend that contemplative approach at time for your mental health. So maybe the tip out of this is, before you go fishing, just be very clear of what you want out of it and why. Are you doing it to prove things to other people? What do you truly want? What makes you feel good?
Yeah, precisely correct. And the variables are such that, like competitions, as I keep saying, uh, the Federer factor isn't there. There's no one dominant, and the industry does well out of this. A new face. It's like the singers in Nashville. They all come to town with a, guitar case and a water sheet music under their arm, but only one in 100, maybe even more, actually make it. There's always this lineup of testosterone young blokes and a few Sheilas too. Good on them. The industry sees no short supply of that factor, but there's no consistent winners. Some might do it on home turf, but I'm talking about an all round context here. Go to any water and be able to catch fish on it uh, without the technology, just a bare boat and a motor. Uh, Boy, would that ever sort them out?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that firsthand. We'll talk more about that in the future. A very satisfying form of fishing too, I must say. And for me, the squinting of the eyes at a computer screen simulates being locked indoors somewhere. So if you do that all day out on the water, it does become, I'm going to do it and I do it, but it doesn't feel as good. It feels unnatural. And look, let alone not being good for your eyes. It's a good podcast, mate. Understand why you go fishing and what you want out of it would be the summary take home message.
Yep, definitely, mate. Yeah. Great talking to you, buddy.
All good, Harro. We'll pull it up there. We'll talk to you again. Stay sane. Good luck catching Murray cod.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, mate. That concludes the interview for this podcast with Rod Harrison. I've listened to it 5 times already, and I'm going to listen to it another 3 just to get that last bit of information out into my head from a person that's 80 years of age and has had a fishing career that is going to be very, very hard to match, especially pre-digital. He was heading out to locations all around the planet that might have been unsafe, might have been some war zones, sketchy aircraft, no GPS, no satellite phones. What a era to live in. So the process is, with these interviews, I want to extract some history, paying respect to people that have built the structure we stand on today. Okay, we're standing on their shoulders. I'm not going to agree with every human I have on about every topic, and no one does. If we did, we'd be locked in a pen and called sheep. What I want to do is pay respect to the past, extract some history so that your time's not wasted purchasing products you don't need or being resold something that was invented or rehashed 20 times in the last 50 years. And to do that, you need to be interviewing people with a lot of experience that care and care to help people. So the way to listen here or watch it if you're on YouTube is to really listen to each sentence and think about how you can learn. Also think about the past and what people did in the past to help us with our life we have today. And therefore you can navigate your path into the future in a lot clearer way. I tried to concentrate on most of the podcast with questions for Harro, but I have a deep insight into his background as well. So I just triggered some questions back to him. But let me know what type of questions you want me to ask anglers in the future. Let me know what helped you out as well. And also, please just make sure there's no ego and no jealousy. We do have a very critical online scene here in Australia, which is definitely linked to anxiety, depression, and people not being on the planet. And there's been organizations set up for it. And we may lead the world too here in Australia in that area. And as I've said in some previous presentations, I've met some of the people working in that area. I also work in mental health and high performance and also in workplaces. So I have a fairly varied background, and that gives me clarity in fishing where I can say whatever I want and pretty much do whatever I want in fishing because I'm not fully sitting in that scene and pressured by everyone to speak in a certain way that keeps everyone happy. I'm a sports coach as well, so I'm fairly clinical and I can see a lot of weaknesses in fishing, and especially when I go hunting without any gadgets and I have that clarity of hunting with original people out on country and say Arnhem Land or Kakadu National Park or whatever it is fishing there. It just gives you that bit of clarity where some other scenes in Australia, I notice there's a lot of fog and they don't have the clarity and people become very, very confused. And here's a bit of feedback about learning that I've just received in the last week or so. 50% of viewers dropped off within 30 seconds while someone was holding a fish up. A big barramundi at a fantastic location in Australia. So 50% of anglers dropped off an education in 30 seconds. 70% dropped off by the 20th minute. If I were you and you want to be better than that other group, you want to improve, you want to know how to improve, all you have to do is be able to concentrate. That group's digitally distracted. They don't actually know what they need to improve. They're lost. I don't even think they know where they're going or why they're looking online. I'm shaking my head as I'm saying this. It's unbelievable to actually find those statistics and have a look at this group and then watch that presentation and sit down and take notes from it and learn from it and then map a better career and then go back and think about the mistakes you've made and how you could have improved. But it was brilliant, a brilliant presentation that people didn't even register how good it was, because I don't think a lot of people actually know what good information is. They are completely lost. That's why I concentrate on putting a pyramid base down of history by interviewing people older than me or learning from or researching or reading, plus my 50 years of experience in a very clinical manner, maybe cutting through a lot of fog from sport, but also hunting without much equipment at all and no sounder, like really raw fishing, so that I can clear my mind in wild fisheries and then heavily pressured fisheries to then assess what I see online and what I see happening in different scenes. Not saying we're gurus in any area, we're just saying we do have a few points of view and we can add to it, just like you'd be teaching us hundreds of things if we were at a campfire together. So I see it like that. But I just want to relay the absolute confusion of the online world. More than 50% of anglers could not identify good learning material and dropped off in 30 seconds. 70% left after 20 minutes. 70% of anglers did not know that what they were receiving is what they needed. So they don't have a clue. So if you're following the 70%, you're following the aimless. So they would control most of the clicks online, right? And if you follow that and you see that's popular, you're following the group that doesn't actually know what they don't know or what they need to know. So that's why I have this background information. And when we talk, when we say people are lost, that's what we mean. And as soon as you start asking them for plans and how to move forward, how to help you move forward, that's when they stop talking. Okay. And if they're going to have a go at us, I just wanted to put that forward there. So that's some context. You need a lot of context to listen to this. So that means when, say, I'm talking or I'm interviewing someone like Harro, you need to be listening for what were the tens of thousands of dollars of mistakes these guys made or refined to produce something better to go out and help anglers. So every sentence, every sound bite really needs to be listened to, because the alternative is to do what that other group did and just drop off, go to the next clip, think you've mastered it, go to the next clip, think by watching a video you've actually mastered it without getting out there doing thousands of hours of training. So we have two different worlds now, okay? We have a vicarious world, watching other people fish, and I think people may be escaping life they don't like by doing that. That's fine in one respect, yep. But in a learning platform and a learning outcome and with a learning plan, that couldn't be further away from reality. So there's two different groups. Make your mind up which one you want to be in. Me, I don't like my time wasted. I like short, sharp. What's this going to do for me? What type of information? Is this a different perspective, a different fishery, a different person, a different age group, different gender talking? How can I learn from it? In high performance, the groups I know anyway, we seek to learn. The ones with ego or jealousy, their careers have been stalled and their learning has been stalled. And therefore, I think their employment opportunities have been stalled, but they're also stalled as a person and unable to meet better people and to grow as a human. But there's a few lessons from someone who loves doing this, myself, and Rod Harrison has, if you don't know, mentored a lot of people, spent a lot of time with young people for free, helping them in fishing, giving them perspective and creating a good scene for them and giving them career advice over decades and decades and decades. And he'd be one of the few people, if any, in this country here, Australia, that holds that amount of history in his head to just articulate with a question. So for me, it's an important distilling and paying respect to that group. And I'm 50, so I've been able to read about those groups for a long period of time and meet a fair few of them all the way across, say, from Western Australia to Northern Territory to Queensland and into New South Wales. And it's just important to me. I want to do it. It's something I've been doing for a long, long time in the background for free. And with the mediums of podcast now, we can get this out to people who actually care. But I just wanted to give you a heads up of a line in the sand now. There's a massive learning misunderstanding. Click and then you're a Jedi. It's not like that. There's a massive misunderstanding between clicking somewhere else away from a clip you could learn from. And there's also a misunderstanding from hearing things you don't like that are right, that you need. And there's a massive lack of that path in fishing. There's been a gap there for a long, long, long time. A few people have tried to fill it unsuccessfully. And if you listen to this podcast again, you'll be receiving it for free, right? So I'm going to listen to it again. So that'll be 8 times at least before you even hear it. And I'm learning. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going over it for a couple of weeks, thinking, oh, okay, that's how that lake situation ended up. I'm going to go back and do that next time. And I was watching Harro fish there. That's what he was doing. Or when I was fishing tidal systems in the mighty Arnhem Land or Kakadu National Park in the wet season, January, February, March, or the Gutjik, that's the Aboriginal season of Gutjik, or Bangareen, the 1 month season where the knock 'em down storms come in, the runoff fishing's there. Sometimes they turn up, sometimes they don't. I'll use this scenario next time, or in Yek in May to mid-June, water's clearing, barometer steadies out. Certain tides are very, very good. Other ones aren't. Fish are at certain places that how I use some of those tips from Harrow to go give me some perspective of where they are. So there's one thing he said there I'm going to go and use. I think you can find that when he's talking about barramundi. And then Wurjang, middle of, say, June to the middle of August. It's the cooler season, part of the 6 seasons in Kakadu National Park. What are the fish doing then? How am I going to find them? I'm going to use one of the sentences Harro said to target there and refine my work in an area I've fished maybe 2,000 times, and I'm still seeking to learn just from this podcast alone, 30 odd minutes from Harro. And then Gurrun, the hot season, middle of August, say through to middle of October, thinking, right, how can I use what he said there to target those fish? Yep, I might go down there a bit and I might do this type of casting and that trolling from one of his tips in the podcast. And then Gunnamallang, super hot season in Northern Territory, the final of the 6 seasons, so mid-October to the end of December. And by the end of December, hopefully the wet season started again. Yep, I'm going to trial this. So I was thinking about when he said what fish do, I'm going to be there in that spot. I haven't been there for a few years. I might go and try that again, and I might use these baits. So that's how I'm thinking when I listen to Harro talk, just in this podcast alone, not counting all the other 20 years of conversation. So I've already shaped my fishing, how I can see it next year, how I'm going to use what he said, how I'm going to really listen about fish behavior, some of the tactics he used, about history, how it evolved, what's rehashed, how to have a good career, how to mentally think about contemplative fishing. And then I think about it with my competitive planning for people in, say, sport. And I'll think about my own wellness as well. So that's how I think, and that's how I use the information. All will sink in over the next 2 weeks and over the next, say, 3 different listenings that I have. No offense, but I'm just going to sit here as a coach, and I may even, if I'm going to be coaching someone in the future, play this and say, right, tell me what you got out of that. And if you didn't get anything out of it, you weren't listening. And if you think you're always better than everyone, that's going to be a massive block for your learning. And I've known a lot of people in extreme high performance, and some of them, they leave no stone unturned for learning. Okay. And I'll talk more about that in the future. And I, at the moment, haven't met an angler anywhere near that level with that amount of seriousness. And people turning off after 30 seconds is just woeful for learning. They need a real talking to about good information being right in front of them. And they were so poor at identifying it. They were just, what were they doing? What path are they on? And for 70% to flip off a clip in 20 minutes, what do they want out of fishing? Just to sit there watching someone else catching a fish? I mean, like, surely after 25 years of that online, we are at the end of that phase. Surely, if not, they have a complete misunderstanding of improvement, a high and low performance misunderstanding. They have fundamental avoidance as well. And I think they may have attention deficit, and they may have an addiction they have to seek treatment for. But just watching something and thinking they know it, they're 2 different things as well. You have to have a lot of thinking, then a lot of process, and a lot of applying what you've learned. And that's why I talk about the frequency of fishing. You go away for free. You can't do it unless you're out there fishing. You need to learn doing it as well as thinking about it. All right. Not just being taught. But I'm going to pull it up here. Thank you for listening. That's how I learned from this. That's my ideology, my mindset, my philosophy. I could be a whole lot more technical and I could fry people's brains by being very, very technical, but I'm just taking it easy and introducing it and just seeing what type of audience we have. It's a good combination. Harro is very contemplated now. He's 80 years of age. He's fishing for his health and wellness, which is fantastic. Removal of any ego or jealousy, insecurity. And I think it's a good mix. And I come in with some clinical sports stuff, but I also recommend relaxation. You should note those notes in there, and also ways to live that have been toxic in our country here in the Western world, and then also terrific. You get to make your own mind up. We're not preaching here. The disclaimer is we're not telling you to do everything or anything. I listed ways that I would do something. In other words, I wouldn't drop off after 30 seconds and I wouldn't drop off after 22 minutes. That's how I would approach this as a coach and someone wanting to learn. Always see a doctor before you start any program to do anything. And if you need help, see a psychologist mentally, okay, or any of the helplines. And also talk to friends and family. Hopefully they're supportive for you. But the main aim is to make a bit more sense of fishing here, respect history, map a little bit of a clearer path out, and enjoy the process, where it's been enjoyable learning and talking to people from many different backgrounds and cultures over decades. And this is all sitting in my head in diaries, folders on hard drives here. And I thought, might as well put it out into the world and try and meet some good people and use the internet for good to meet better people out in the water one day. But best of luck on your next fishing trip. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Remember, stay healthy, stay safe, and let's create a better fishing scene for everyone.